And is everyone on who needs to be available as panelists?
I think
And
we're
then-
all
I'm not aware.
set.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anybody that's not, that should be.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And I just like to remind people too, if you are going to be speaking, please turn your video on. And that helps us in terms of the transcript. Okay. Mr. Arsenal, can we go on the record, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. This is the public comment hearing of the Massachusetts Energy Facilities Siting Board in docket EFSB 22-03 and DPU docket DPU 22-21, Eversource Energy, and their request for approval of the Greater Cambridge Energy Program. Good evening and welcome, everyone. To start, I want to explain how to use Zoom tonight to ensure that everyone can fully participate in this public comment hearing from the start. We have interpreters who will be translating from English to Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Mandarin, and Haitian Creole, and from each of those languages into English. To select your desired language, click on the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and select your desired language option so that you can hear everything said today with interpretation as needed. Please do not check the box that says mute original audio. We recommend this so that you can still hear the voice of the actual speaker faintly in the background, but mostly you will hear the voice of the interpreter. Dial-in participants will hear the speaker's voice without interpretation, as Zoom does not offer interpretation for dial-in participants. However, all comments made by dial-in participants on this number will be interpreted. The interpreters are now going to repeat these instructions in the appropriate languages.
Could we begin with the Spanish instructions on the English channel? On the English channel, Etienne? Eric, could you please provide the instructions onto the English channel? Thank you. Darnell, please provide the instructions in Haitian Creole. Onto the English channel. Thank you. John or Everton, could you please provide the instructions in Portuguese on the English channel? Okay, we've completed the instructions, presiding officer.
Thank you, Mr. Green. My name is Donna Sharkey. I'm the presiding officer in this proceeding, and I am conducting the public comment hearing being held tonight. As you can see on your video screen, there are other staff with me from the Energy Facilities Siting Board who will be involved in the review of the Eversource petition, including Andrew Green, Director of the Siting Division, Joan Foster Evans, General Counsel of the Siting Board, John Young, Technical Director, and Eric Logan Hughes, an Energy Facilities Siting Analyst with the Siting Board. Finally, please note that this public comment hearing is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the Siting Board's YouTube channel for viewing. The Siting Board is conducting this public comment hearing to allow the public to comment on Eversource's proposed Greater Cambridge Energy Program, which I will call the project. The project includes a new 115 14 kilovolt substation, which will be located in an underground vault at a location under development between Broadway and Binney Streets in Cambridge. We'll refer to this as the new substation. It also includes 8 new 115 kilovolt underground transmission lines that will be housed in a total of 5 new duct banks, totaling approximately 8.3 miles in portions of Cambridge, Somerville, and the Allston-Brighton area of Boston, which we will refer to as the new lines. And finally, modifications to certain existing substation facilities that are located in Cambridge, Somerville, and Allston-Brighton. You may have received a notice of this public comment hearing in the mail or seen a copy of the notice in newspapers, online, or through your city's website. As part of the public comment hearing tonight, Eversource will make a presentation to describe this project in further detail and will be available to answer questions. In its filing to the Energy Facilities Siting Board and the Department of Public Utilities, the company states that the project is designed to address long-term reliability needs in the Cambridge area, which is experiencing rapid economic development and sustained load growth. After that presentation, we want to hear from the community regarding concerns and comments regarding the proposed project and any questions that you might have. In addition to what you hear tonight, there is more detailed information relating to the project provided online at the Siting Board website and on the Eversource website identified in the notice that you have seen. If you decide that you wish to participate as either an intervener or a limited participant, you need to file those requests by July 22nd. Our Siting Board website describes the requirements necessary to petition for status as an intervener or for status as a limited participant. There is a specific page on our website which provides information on filing these requests. The web address is IFSB-OR-DPU-IN-EFSB-SITING-CASE. This information is set out in the written notice as well. If you have any questions on these requirements, please email me at donna.sharkey@mass.gov. I'm now going to turn to Eversource's representatives and allow them the opportunity to describe the request filed with the Siting Board and briefly present the important details of the request to the members of public who are here tonight. Mr. Rosenzweig.
Thank you, Presiding Officer Sharkey, and good night, good evening to people. My name is David Rosenzweig. I am counsel to Eversource Energy in this matter. We look forward to tonight's public comment hearing and the opportunity to get feedback from the community. We have many representatives here from the Eversource project team that are here to listen and to answer questions as may be helpful. At this time, I'm going to turn over the proceedings on our end to Maya Benjamins and Todd Lanham, who are going to run through a short presentation providing highlights regarding the project. Maya?
Thank you, David. Good evening. My name is Maya Benjamins, and I am the Director of Strategic Project Development here at Eversource. On behalf of Eversource, I would like to thank the Energy Facility Siting Board for the opportunity to present the Greater Cambridge Energy Program. My colleagues and I have developed a presentation that demonstrates our innovative solution to addressing the reliable electrical service and balancing the needs of the community. I look forward to hearing your feedback today. Todd?
Thank you, Maya. I'm joined tonight by my name is Todd Lanham. I'm with Eversource Energy. I serve as the Manager of Project Services, which is the outreach division for our projects. I'm joined by a lot of colleagues here from Eversource. Matt Watkins will be presenting, or he'll be flipping through the slide deck for us. Matt, if you would also do me the favor and go ahead and post links to electronic copies of the presentation that you'll see tonight, translated into Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin, and Haitian Creole. So Matt, if you'll go ahead, post those into the chat so that everyone has the ability to look at the presentations as we see. See, that just showed up. Thank you. Matt, will you also queue up the slide deck, the presentation for this evening? Just want to make sure everyone can see the material on the screen. Next slide, please. A strong electrical transmission grid is vital to the safety, the security, and the economic prosperity of the region. The transmission system serves a critical role ensuring that electricity flows with a high degree of reliability from where the power is generated to where it's needed. To address the need for additional substation capacity and to reinforce the existing transmission system, the proposed program includes a new substation and 5 new duct banks that'll hold 8 transmission lines. This proposed program is designed to be an integrated long-term solution to address reliability and electric growth needs in the greater Cambridge area by providing additional electric supply to meet growing needs, to strengthen the transmission system that serves the region, and to ensure we have a flexible and resilient electric grid. Next slide. So what does this program or this project consist of? It consists of 2 basic parts: a new underground substation in Kendall Square. This will be integrated into Boston Properties redevelopment of the existing parcel. It will include a public open space above the substation, nestled between residential and commercial buildings. The project also has new underground transmission lines, 5 duct banks housing 8 new 115 kilovolt underground transmission lines will connect to remote substations and integrate this substation to the grid. So for the route selection, this starts with the potential universe of routes. And the graphic that you see highlights the connections between the proposed substation and 4 existing substations throughout the region. The universe of routes represented by the green study area are for the Kendall Square. Those run from the new substation to the existing Kendall substation. Blue represents connections from the new proposed substation to our existing Putnam substation. Yellow represents the proposed line routes from the existing substation to from the proposed substation to our existing Somerville substation. And the red routes represent the connections, potential connections from our proposed substation to our existing Alston-Brighton substation. It's all of these potential universal routes that are then systematically narrowed down based on system reliability, technical feasibility, environmental and community impacts, stakeholder feedback, and cost to ratepayers. And the options that best balance these criteria are selected for further review. Next. Eversource did identify the top routes within each of the study areas for final consideration and stakeholder feedback. The graphic that you see before you represents the preferred line routes, including the Kendall route, Route K5A, represented in green, the Putnam route, Route P13, represented by the blue line, the Somerville route, S1A, represented in yellow, and two routes going from Alston-Brighton, from the proposed substation to Alston-Brighton. B29F West is highlighted in red, and B2A East is highlighted in orange. In the next few slides, we'll go a little deeper and provide a little extra insight into each of these routes. So first, looking at Kendall Route 5A. This proposed route follows Broadway before crossing the corner of the Volpe property. It then turns up 3rd Street, turning east onto Linsky Way. Finally, this proposed route turns south onto 2nd Street and into the existing Kendall station. This route travels approximately a half a mile through the city streets of Cambridge. The preferred route in Putnam, Route P13, also travels about half a mile through the city streets of Cambridge, and it follows Broadway, turns down Ames Street and Memorial Drive, where it intersects in a T configuration on Memorial Drive, where it's spliced into existing transmissions lines to the east and to the west. Somerville, this proposed Somerville line route from the proposed substation to our existing Somerville station, Route S1A, travels on Broadway, then down on Hampshire Street. The route continues down Columbia, and it enters Somerville on Windsor Place. The route then crosses a parking lot before going under the MBTA tracks. Finally, it crosses Prospect Street and connects into the existing Somerville substation. The Alston-Brighton line route that you see here represented in red, Route B29F, also it exits the substation, follows Vassar Street, then connects with Memorial Drive to the River Street Bridge. It crosses the River Street Bridge and transitions onto Soldiers Field Road. The route crosses into Boston and follows Cambridge Street into the existing Alston-Brighton substation. This route travels approximately 3 miles through the streets of Cambridge. Route B2A East The east and the west designation delineate between which way out of the proposed substation these routes travel, represented in orange. These routes travel the streets of Cambridge, including Broadway, Ames Street, and Memorial Drive. Then we use a horizontal directional drill to route across the Charles River into the Alston-Brighton area from the Magazine Beach area on Cambridge side. Also on this particular route, Route B2AN, as a noticed variation, follows a southern parcel boundary of Harvard's property, and it parallels existing MBTA rail facilities. This route travels approximately 3 miles through Cambridge and Alston-Brighton. As we mentioned before, there is a proposed horizontal directional drill as a method for crossing the Charles River. The HDD, or horizontal directional drill, will enter near Memorial Drive at Magazine Beach, and it will be subsurface beneath the park and the river. This horizontal directional drill will resurface in the current site of the Alston Multimodal Project. And this particular solution helps minimize disturbances to Magazine Beach, the Charles River, the wetlands and the shorelines, and DCR recreational facilities. All of the workspaces will be fully restored following construction of the line. The Eversource team also considered alternatives and alternative routes. Similarly, each of these noticed alternatives were considered based on project and system needs. And also, these underwent extensive analysis and community feedback. The project team also considered other alternatives to the proposed project. Solar, energy storage, and gas or emergency generation were considered, but solar was not feasible due to the size and scale necessary to meet the needs. The duration of need exceeded solar availability, and there were widespread needs for upgrades still needed for the integration. Similarly, energy storage solutions were not feasible due to the scale and lack of capacity for charging, and the very large land requirements and added generation for recharging. Gas and emergency generation was considered not feasible due to, again, size needed and increased fossil emissions. Peaks occurred on hot days when there was limited demand for combined heat and power generation. And this solution would still require extensive system upgrades. So what can you expect from this construction and this project? This is very typical to most other underground construction that you may be familiar with in your community. Our crews will be working on the local streets during each phase of the project, and they typically start with vault installations, followed by saw cutting and excavating a trench between the vaults. Crews typically install duct banks and backfill shortly thereafter. Temporary road restoration is prepared. And then later in the process, cable pulling and splicing and permanent restoration is completed. Work near residents typically takes a few weeks to several weeks, and we do work closely with the neighbors in the city on traffic management and restoration plans. Below is a representative schedule of projected milestones for the project. Assuming the receipt of all necessary permits and approvals, coordinated activity scheduling, construction of the project is anticipated to commence sometime around the second quarter of 2024, with a rolling completion date of various components in 2028 and 2029. As you see on here, several of these milestones have been met. We've had some submittals. We're now having our public comment hearing, which does start off the regulatory deliberation period. Thank you for letting us join you tonight. We're very excited about this project. The project team and all of the team at Eversource have worked hard to come up with a solution that balances the electric needs of the region and the impacts that we know will be generated from the construction. You can scan the QR code if you'd like to get on our mailing list. The QR code takes you to a Google form and you can opt in to receive project information. You can always contact the outreach team at the number or the email address that you see before you, and we'll be glad to come out and have further discussions about the project. Thank you again.
Next, we turn to the public to offer comments and ask questions about the company's request and the information provided by Eversource in the presentation. I'm going to outline some guidelines to use in speaking at this public comment hearing. There is a court reporter participating remotely who will transcribe everything said during this hearing.
Excuse me, presiding officer, we seem to have Spanish interpretation on the English channel. Could we please put that on the appropriate channel?
Thank you, Mr. Green. As we are all relying on internet connections or telephones to participate, we could experience some technical problems such as sound from speakers, including potential background noise, video and audio issues, and potential delays. Please speak slowly and clearly to allow a speaker to finish speaking before you begin speaking, and to pay attention to the video of the person speaking and my video. I will raise my hand as a sign on my video if I need to interrupt the person currently speaking to ask them to stop. I will briefly reiterate these instructions when we open the floor to public comment. We plan to break every 90 minutes for 10 minutes and resume until we have heard from everyone who wants to offer comments, or at 10 p.m. tonight. As stated in the notice, we have reserved time for additional public comment hearing if needed tomorrow and Thursday evening. If we experience technical problems during the hearing, the stenographer may request a speaker to repeat themselves. I ask anyone who speaks tonight to mute their audio when listening and only unmute when it is your turn to speak. This will ensure the best audio quality for everyone. Please speak slowly and clearly and allow the prior speaker to finish before you begin speaking. We greatly appreciate everyone's participation today. We will be posting a video recording of tonight's public comment hearing on the Siting Board's YouTube channel, so the people who could not attend or wish to see what was said at this hearing to be able to view that recording. The recordings will be posted in English, Portuguese, Chinese, Haitian Creole, and Spanish. In addition, the written transcript of this hearing will be posted in the Siting Board file room for this proceeding. People can access the transcript at the Siting Board's webpage for the Greater Cambridge Energy Program. The links to the Siting Board webpage and ours for the Greater Cambridge Energy Program are posted in the notice for this hearing. Please note, however, that the transcript is the official record of this public comment hearing. We will take comments in the following order. First, from any federal, state, or local officials. Then I will call on members of the general public who have registered to speak with the Siting Board in the order in which they signed up. Time allowing, I will invite additional public commenters who use the raise hand feature on Zoom. Let me begin by calling on any public officials who are present. I'll begin with federal officials. Are there any federal officials present who wish to speak?
I do not believe we have any federal officials present.
Then next we will hear from state officials. I believe Representative Mike Connolly of the 26th Middlesex District had called and asked to make a presentation tonight. Is Mr. Connolly, is Representative Connolly on the attendees list?
Yes, he is in the panel.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Terrific. Well, thank you for recognizing me, and thank you for the presentation. Most of this project, the vast majority of it, it seems, occurs in the Cambridge and Somerville legislative district that I represent. So naturally, I'm very interested and also do have some concerns. First and foremost, you know, I think we can all take a victory lap and be appreciative of the efforts that everyone made to ensure that that original proposal of siting the electrical substation on Fulkerson Street in East Cambridge was ultimately improved. And I appreciate that Eversource and the city of Cambridge and Boston Properties and others worked with us to ensure, worked with residents and all concerned to ensure the preferable siting away from Fulkerson Street and away from the school and that densely populated neighborhood. So that certainly, I think, is a highlight and something that we can be grateful for. I do have some concerns, and I want to ask the proponents here to really double check some of the thinking regarding the S1A Somerville route down Broadway, Hampshire Street, Prospect Street, etc. My office has heard from several of the abutters who are asking the question, would the Grand Junction corridor be a preferred alternative? That is, of course, in many locations, not as close to the densely populated residential neighborhood. It's also land that isn't as immediately or continuously active as our roadways are. And we know the Wellington-Harrington neighborhood has, you know, for decades been targeted, whether it was the old Inner Belt Highway that was going to smash through this neighborhood or other developments, which I think raise some equity concerns. This is one of, you know, the more modest income areas of the city. And so I would ask the proponents to really hone in on that particular alternative to make sure that we arrive at the best outcome possible for our constituents. In addition, just want to comment on the Alston-Brighton connection. I believe Eversource is in contact with Magazine Beach Partners in particular, and I would very much encourage that partnership. They have been tremendous stewards of the Magazine Beach resource. And of course, there's a need to be particularly sensitive around the Charles River and the parkland, the wetlands, the DCR open space, etc. Moving on to Union Square, This has been another area of concerns. I know folks such as Somerville City Councilor Benyu and Campen have raised concerns. I know JT Scott represents that area. And here again, you know, I think folks are asking a larger question in Union Square. You know, they're looking at that site of where the current substation is. And I know there's a proposal to connect transmission lines there and actually expand the footprint. People are asking the question, should there even be a substation directly across from the Green Line extension Union Square branch? This has to be some of the most valuable land in Somerville, if not the greater Boston area. And so I hope there's a potential to contemplate a resiting either as part of this or perhaps as part of some future phase or iteration of this future work, to think about would it make sense to unlock that parcel directly across from the new Union Square station for community use, and perhaps look for an alternative or an underground location for that Union Square substation. And then another point I'll mention, you know, residents have been very clear that they do not want to see that Union Square substation in any way encroach on the potential right of way for a future Union Square Green Line connection to Porter Square, which is certainly something that, you know, we hold out hopes for in the future. Finally, I'm wrapping up here. I just want to say, you know, I appreciate that you've ruled out gas generation as an emergency option. You know, as a matter of policy, we want to shift away from combustible fossil fuel gas use and move toward electricity. You know, with electricity, we do have the potential to produce that in a renewable and a clean way. And so I certainly applaud that. And finally, you know, always want to emphasize the need for comprehensive planning. You know, I've been in countless planning board meetings and development review meetings over the past decade or more in this community. Very rarely, as we contemplate new development, have I ever heard the conversation raised around our electricity needs. And so, you know, I think for many residents, they want to make sure that we're proactively addressing these concerns and not playing catch up. And that's really important so that as this work happens, it can be coordinated in ways that align with other road projects, other sewer projects, other upgrades that are happening. And I know efforts are underway for that alignment. And I just want to encourage as much coordination and as much proactive planning as possible. So that's pretty much it for me. I'm going to continue to stay involved and continue advocating for our community, and look forward to hearing what our constituents have to say this evening. Thanks again.
Thank you. Are there any other state officials who are present who would like to speak? In that case, we would move to local elected officials.
And again, if you have not already pre-registered, you can use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen to indicate your interest in speaking.
In that case, we would turn to appointed local officials, and I believe there are two representatives who have signed up to speak from the city of Cambridge. Nancy Glowa and George Olson. If you can raise your hand, if you're in the attendees panel, we will move you to panelist.
So we just promoted Get Olson and Kathy Watkins to the city of Cambridge.
Hi, yes, this is Jed Olson. I'm counsel for the city. Actually, Kathy Watkins is who's going to speak on behalf of the city. I just wanted to make sure that she got connected. So I will go back on mute and turn it over to Kathy.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Ms. Watkins?
Hi, thank you all. I'm Kathy Watkins. I'm the Assistant Commissioner of Engineering at the City of Cambridge, Department of Public Works.
Excuse me, Kathy. My name's David. I'm the court reporter. We've got
Yeah.
about 5 interpreters and a court reporter trying to take every word you say. Could you please speak slowly and distinctly? Okay?
I will.
Otherwise, it goes into the ether and nobody sees it again.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Catherine Watkins, the Assistant Commissioner of Engineering at the City of Cambridge, Department of Public Works. And I'd like to make a few brief comments on behalf of the city. The goals of the project are to provide a reliable electric system with sufficient capacity and redundancy, which is critical to support the city, our residents, and businesses, and also to meet our goals of a pathway toward carbon neutrality. A substantial portion of the project, including the substation and majority of the transmission routes, are located in Cambridge. We therefore have a very substantial interest in ensuring that the final project meets the electrical needs of the city, is protective of the health and safety of our residents, and also maintains the city's infrastructure. We have been working collaboratively with Eversource and the community over the past 2.5 years, and really focusing a lot on the location of the substation, and then more recently, really diving into the details around the transmission routes. We appreciate the collaborative nature of the process to date and the commitment from Eversource to ongoing coordination and collaboration. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins. Are there any other appointed public officials who wish to speak? If there are none, next we will turn to the members of the general public. First, if you would like to present comments to the siting board today, you have hopefully already registered as described in the notice. I will call the names from the sign-in sheet in the order you signed up, and our staff will move you into the panel to speak. For those of you who are calling in on the phone lines, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. Please dial *9 when you hear your name announced as the next speaker. After we had heard from all the registered commenters, if you had not commented and would like to do so, use the raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen or *9 on your phone. There are many commenters that have signed up, and we notified by email those commenters of the order in which we will call upon them. I'm also going to remind you now that the entire proceeding tonight is being interpreted in real time. When speaking, each person should remember to help the interpreters by speaking in a loud, clear voice at a normal pace as best you can. This will help the interpreters and the court reporter to make sure your words are correctly stated in the record. Everyone on Zoom should make sure to select their desired language by pressing the globe icon at the bottom of your screen. If you do not select a language, you may not be able to hear the current speaker. We want to ensure that everyone has a chance to speak. Please try to limit your comments to approximately 5 minutes per person so that we can hear from everyone who wishes to speak. We want to hear from everyone who has expressed interest. I would remind speakers that if you would like to supplement any remarks that you make tonight, you can do that with written comments as described in the notice. We are only at the start of the siting board's review of the company's request, and there will be plenty of time for anyone to supplement their comments with additional questions or comments. We ask that you submit your written comments by July 22nd. We rely on comments from the public to help us in understanding the issues on which the board's decision is made. Each public commenter will be provided only one opportunity to comment so that we may hear from everyone. Speakers should remember to mute their audio when listening and unmute only when speaking. Everyone should speak slowly and clearly and allow the prior speaker to finish before you begin speaking. Please give your full name, spell your last name, and give your address at the start of your comments. We greatly appreciate everyone's participation today. If you have pre-registered, you should have received an email which indicates your position on the list of commenters. We will take your comments in the order indicated. If you miss your turn, we will call your name again after all the pre-registered commenters have given their comments. So I believe the first name listed on who have pre-registered is Roger Levy. Is Mr. Levy here?
Yes.
Please I know it's on your screen, but please just spell your last name and give your address. And then please go ahead and give us your comments. Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Levy.
Yes, so my name is Roger Levy, Levy, and I am an owner at 80 Webster Avenue, Unit 3A in Somerville, Massachusetts. I have a particular comment regarding the preferred Somerville line route. That passes right next to our building. We are a 46-unit residential complex. And if it goes down Columbia Street, it will also hit an opening residential unit, another large condo complex that is opening on the Cambridge side. We're right at the Cambridge Somerville boundary. We in the past, when Eversource has done work in the vicinity of our building, and it's done quite a bit, it's been extremely disruptive to us. We have probably 100 people in our building. It's extraordinarily loud and disruptive. It happens at all hours of the night. And I think there is, so I would be concerned about the impact on the residential neighborhood in both of the preferred choices. I'd be concerned about the work happening at night. I'd be concerned about whether the power lines can the power lines be buried? And what is the benefit to residents who would be undergoing this negative impact that we're already all too familiar with? One alternative that I'd like to suggest is that in between the two preferred routes in Somerville is the Boynton Yards district. We are at the edge of the Boynton Yards district, but the more central Boynton Yards district is immediately to our east. And that is a commercial area where late night work would presumably be much less impactful. So we're concerned about the preferred route particularly, but both of the routes, I think, in the Somerville area, it seems like the impact on residents would be quite negative, and I'm not sure it would justify the benefits. So that's the concern that I'd like to express. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe the next person who registered to speak is Brittany Butler.
I don't believe Brittany is in the attendee group right now, but if I'm wrong, would you please raise your hand using the Zoom icon at the bottom of the screen so we can identify you. I am not seeing Brittany.
Then we will try and come back to her. Later in the proceeding. Next is Mr. Jim Gray, who wants to speak as a representative for the Linden Park Neighborhood Association. Is Mr. Gray present?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me now?
We can. Mr. Gray, just before you begin, can you give your name and your address and spell your last name, please, for the record? Thank you.
I will. It's Jim Gray, Gray. I live at 2 Michael Way, which is in Cambridge, which is a part of the Linden Park neighborhood. And I'm the president of our local association. We constitute about 55 homes, and we're actually right next to the Grand Junction Railroad line, and very close to the original proposed siting on Fulkerson Street. And the fact that it has been moved is the reason I'm speaking on behalf of our group, very much in favor of the new siting in particular. I'll have a brief comment at the end about the Grand Junction as a possible route, which we were not fully aware of and haven't discussed, but would be potentially concerned if that was being considered, because the neighborhood is a residential neighborhood that's been through a lot of disruption and noise from commercial development in the area, and this would be an addition to that. So that would be the concern there. In terms of the substation, I have not been involved. I just say personally, I have not been involved much in this kind of political activity or community event, and I was very pleased with the way the people at the electric company have really worked with us. It's been probably 2 years of meetings, and the original siting, as Mike Connolly already mentioned, was not in a good location on several counts. And so we're very pleased that it's moved. I think I would say overall, it's really, I think, a win-win for everyone as far as I know. Certainly our neighborhood feels that way. I think that's really the main thing I want to say, other than that I have a great appreciation for how long this takes, this nearly 10-year timeline, and I appreciate all of the efforts that go into this and really being included, not just from Eversource, but the city representatives. And as a resident, it's an example for me of a potentially difficult sort of decision process that has been handled very well. So I'll conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. I believe the next person who's signed up is Barry Zevin. Or Zevin. Is he on the attendees list?
He is, and he should be joining us momentarily.
Okay.
But as you begin, Mr. Zevin, could you give your name and address and spell your last name, please, for the
Yes, of course. My name's Barry Zevin. That's Z as in zebra, E, V as in Virginia, I-N. And I'm at 67 Hampshire Street, where I've been for 37 years. So I've burrowed my way through all 3 volumes of the Epsilon Associates report. And I'm struck by the fact that they actually recommend the Grand Junction alternate. It's not clear to me that all the scoring categories that went into that deserve equal weight. But it seems to me that the transportation impacts and the abutters impacts are really extremely important. I'd like to just put a little bit of detail to those. It seems to me that the supposed cost savings that are throwing this to the Hampshire Street route instead of the Grand Junction may really be disregarding the externalities of the cost externalities of construction disruption and the true cost of properly restoring the street. Hampshire Street carries a lot of heavy traffic, multiple buses per hour, a lot of emergency vehicles, a lot of trucks, and any imperfections in the pavement become a real noise and vibration problem. There's also a lot of bicycle traffic. There are more bikes heading into Kendall Square in the morning than cars, which is wonderful, but they don't seem to have earned a place in the traffic counts that are put forth as part of the reckoning for disruption here. The Grand Junction just seems like it is much less disruptive in terms of traffic. The other problem that's sort of mind-boggling is how to avoid all of the gas, water, electric, and cable mains in the street all have multiple hundreds, I'm sure, of lateral connections to individual houses. And just watching the reconstruction of the storm drainage on Broadway and Kendall Square, which has been going on for more than a year now, is pretty impressive, the amount of messing around that has to go on to hold up all of those cross connections. It just seems hard to believe that avoiding that by going up the railroad tracks isn't the wiser move for everybody involved. One last tiny point, maybe not so tiny point, the tree analysis comes out in favor of the Hampshire Street route, and I would question at least one point of fact on the claim is page 5-159, that there are trees that may be shade trees that may be impacted by the turn from Galileo Way onto Broadway. Those trees are on Draper Labs property. They're not on the Grand Junction right of way. So it's hard for me to understand how those would get involved with this. So that's basically I'm afraid it's a not in my front yard complaint, but I think in fact that the Grand Junction really seems to me and a lot of my neighbors like a no-brainer choice, especially given the weight of your consultant's own analysis. So I thank you very, very much. And I'm certainly grateful to Eversource for taking the initiative to upgrade the grid. I think it's really necessary and obviously has to be done. And so thank you.
Thank you. The next person on the list is Christina Chase. Is she in the attendees list?
I have not seen Ms. Chase in the group.
But we had Brittany Butler show up.
Oh, well then, Ms. Butler, can you go ahead, just please give your full name, spell your last name, and give your address, please, for the record.
Hi, yeah, sorry, I was on the phone. I didn't realize I had to be on Zoom. So sorry, I missed when you called me earlier. I'm Brittany Butler. I live at 47 Henry Street. And I'm not very knowledgeable actually about any of this. So it's really just a series of like priorities as someone who doesn't know too much, but just hoping that you all have thoughts about how this investment in an energy grid, feeds into a future energy grid that's more sustainable. Just strikes me that what I've heard about our climate future is that we need to be able to transition from old traditional grids to new grids that can sustain sustainable energy. And so I'd just be curious to understand if that's possible with this plan, or if that's just investing in kind of an old way or increasing energy production in a way that's not really going to be good for us in the long run. So that's one thing. And then the other I was thinking about, I think other people have said already, but just thinking about how the construction may disrupt in terms of sound and in terms of, trees and greenery, what residents kind of currently have, and if there's any way to potentially upgrade as that construction happens so that we have something better than we have now, and if there are incentives to do that. And those are my two. And the last is just hoping that you're considering how this may disproportionately impact communities that maybe don't have as much power and privileges showing up on this call, and hoping we can think about an equitable way to make sure the plan goes forward and affects, people across socioeconomic status, race, and gender in equitable ways. And now my daughter is 3 and needs me to go help her out. But those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butler. I believe Christina Chase has showed up in the attendees list. Is that correct?
Yes, and we're moving her to the panel.
That's correct. This is Christina.
Christina, could you just give your full name and your address and spell your last name
Certainly.
just for the record?
My pleasure. My name is Christina Chase, last name C-H-A-S-E. I live at 101 Hampshire Street. So this is regarding the proposed route for, of course, Somerville, the S1A. And I'd like to further support what Representative Connolly had mentioned as far as concerns, as well as others regarding this particular proposed route. As homeowners, I live in a 6-unit building. I've spoken with the other owners. Unfortunately, I was the only able to attend tonight. And we read through the report, and we have strong concerns regarding the disruption to the neighborhood, the potential impact on our building's foundation, the impact on parking, but really the impact on quality of life here in our beautiful neighborhood. I think Mr. Zevin made an excellent point, which is we have a lot of bicycle traffic, and it is very much a community and a neighborhood. And having all of the work take place both right outside our windows, impacting our trees, our flowers, etc., is going to be a great disruption and is of great concern. In looking at the rationale for dismissing routes for further analysis for this,
Sorry, it's not clear what you're saying. Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. Regarding the dismissal of other routes that were explored, it was unclear. We saw very little quantitative data presented, so it was unclear why some of these routes were dismissed. And I think ultimately, as it's been also brought up, there is concern about targeting a historically redlined neighborhood for this potential route and pathway. I appreciate that Eversource and the committee care about those concerns, and so look forward to further analysis and review of alternatives.
Thank you, Ms. Chase.
Thank you.
I believe the next person who is signed up is Kimberly Kaufman. Is she in the attendees list? No.
No, she does not appear to be.
Okay. In that case, could we move to Serenus Hua?
Yes.
Hi, could you just give your name and address and spell your last name for the purposes of the record?
Sure. My name is Serenus Hua. That last name is spelled H-U-A. I work as a scientist at Moderna. I live with my wife and 2 small kids at 61 Hampshire Street in Cambridge. And we're directly on one of the proposed routes for the high voltage lines. I think I wanted to echo the points that Representative Connolly and others have already made about the Somerville S1 and S1A lines. Those cut directly through residential neighborhoods versus the alternative S11C line, which follows railroad tracks, runs mostly behind multiple commercial and non-residential properties. To me, looking through this, and we've talked with a lot of neighbors, a lot of people in our neighborhood, just contrasting that plant, right? Looking at all the proposed high voltage lines and how they pass through Cambridge and surrounding cities, we can see that the Brighton East, the Brighton West, the Kendall, the Putnam lines, they primarily pass next to commercial properties or at least non-residential properties. And that makes a lot of sense, right? We want to minimize the impact on people, again, living next door to this heavy construction. But Somerville is a pretty glaring exception to that, right? And so that's the yellow route that's been shared previously. Runs right through a very densely populated residential area of Cambridge. And so, that area, we were just out the other day talking to, again, neighbors, counting how many houses. There's over 100 residential units. I want to say there might even be probably over 150. I'm not sure the exact count, but a whole lot of residential units. We're talking houses, condos, apartments, right on this construction route, right? A lot of small businesses as well, right? That rely on Columbia Street, rely on Hampshire Street for business, for daily life, for the street parking, for the bike lanes, commuting in and out of work, and just it's a pretty vibrant neighborhood that we're in, and I would say I am very concerned, and a lot of our neighbors are very concerned about, again, the impact that this construction over the course of I guess years will have on our neighborhood. Again, it's been mentioned previously. We're a historically red line community. Our residents have been subjected to discriminatory policies in past decades. The residual effects to this day is that our neighborhood and our residents, on average, are more economically disadvantaged than many of our surrounding neighborhoods. And then that unfortunately does mean that we're often targeted as well for these types of, again, disruptive projects, projects that have high environmental impact, both during construction as well as after the dust settles, right? You think about the impact of having these high voltage lines in close proximity to where people live. And I also wanted to say, talk about just the demographics, right? Again, the people that are living here. We, again, are one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Cambridge. In terms of impact to abutters, I can't think of a place where you would have more impact, right? We also have more families than other areas of Cambridge. We have more children than other areas of Cambridge. And so people that would be more affected by this construction and the environmental impacts afterwards of these high voltage lines. And, so I just wanted to, again, appeal to the siting board to, again, consider the impact to residents, again, along Hampshire Street, along Columbia Street, in these residential neighborhoods that are directly going to be, again, like 10, 20 feet away from from these high voltage lines and from the construction for putting them in. And, contrasting that to the alternative S11C line, which again does not abut nearly as many residential or even nearly as many properties. Runs mostly, again, along the tracks and behind commercial and non-residential properties. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. We've been going for a bit. We're going to take a 10-minute break now, and then we will resume with the other pre-registered commenters. So let's come back at 7:27. Off the record. Let's go back on the record. The next person listed on the sign-up sheet is Nguyen Tuong. Is he in our attendees list?
He was a moment ago, and I hope he's in the panel. I'm not sure that Mr. Nguyen is still with us.
Ah. Well, let's try the next person and we'll try and move back to him. Next person listed is Caleb Nealon.
I'm sorry, we have Kimberly
Kaufman.
Kaufman.
Then let's return to her. She was earlier on the list.
I'm afraid that she seems to have also vanished.
Okay. Then I think Mr. Hughes may have found our last panelist.
Yeah, Kimberly's reappeared also.
Yes. Thank you. Has he been promoted?
I think she's consistently disconnecting because she was promoted and immediately left again. So it might be best to move on.
Oh, no, I think I see someone who just came on.
This is
Hi, thanks for waiting for me. Something happened, but I'm glad that I'm on.
We are too. Can you just do the same routine where you give your name and spell your last name and give your address for the record? Thank you.
Gladly. Okay, so my name, well, my legal name is Tung Vie Nguyen. I just go by V to make things simple. The way you spell my last name is Nguyen, and I'm over at 63 Hampshire Street. I have a lot to say. I will try to say it as clearly and as slowly as I can within 5 minutes. If you don't already know me, I am the person that has been flyering on both Hampshire and on Columbia because I feel very strongly about this current disturbance or the proposed disturbance. On Sunday, I passed out over 150 informational packets, which was actually sent to all of us. And it turns out that of the 20 people that I talked to, only one person actually knew that there was going to be a high voltage electric line that would be disturbing their street or residents. So, and of the 20 people, of course, nobody wants it in their backyard. I bring this up because then I did some more Google search. And if you can take a look, it's pretty easy to see. These roads, both Hampshire and Columbia, they have from the middle section of each road, which is presumably where you would put these lines, there's less than 20 feet between that middle of the road to somebody's house. That's a lot of disturbance, both during construction and even afterwards, because as we all know, EMS will, especially high voltage, will conduct interference with cellular, satellite, and internet. The alternative route is kind of not in that same magnitude at all. Looking at the alternative route, there's at least 50 feet between the center of the road to somebody's residence. Most of the time, it's commercial land, or it's even more than that. Now, why is Hampshire and Columbia being targeted for such a disturbing force? I can't answer that. Excuse me one second. Addie, I'm talking on the phone right now. Can you give me a moment, please? I'm sorry. Is there a way that I can continue in a little bit, because this is not going to work right now.
We would you like, do you have a time estimate? I mean, would you like us to get back to you in 20 minutes or?
Oh, it looks like my husband was able to take care of that. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Let me get back into this. I'm sorry. And so I want to get back to the fact that I was out talking to the residents, talking to people on Sunday, and there was people didn't know, and it's unfortunate, but a lot of people had conflicts with this meeting. So I'm sitting and speaking on behalf of 4 people that said, I'm sorry, I can't make the meeting. Could you please voice my concerns? And so here are my actually pointed issues right now. More than 150 front doors. I'm not even going to say residential units, because some buildings are multifamily and that's beyond me, but I was able to walk and pass out over 150 flyers, same pamphlet. So it's not, I'm trying to give people the same information. And I want to reiterate that people live here. There is over 150 front doors. It's not commercial real estate where you can walk, where you can work for part of the day and then go away. These people live, sleep, eat here. And I would really like us to discuss the disadvantage, because of the people that I talked to, there were people that I could not communicate with. And that's my problem, because I only know 2 languages. But I don't know if, I mean, these are the working class people. They don't have, they're sometimes working 2 to 3 jobs just to provide for their family. You're expecting them to sit down for this meeting. It's very difficult to do so, and I'm speaking for them. They don't want to further disruption to their lives. And okay, here's another thing. I live in a 100-plus-year-old house, and I'm sure most of these houses are the same way. I get vibrations just for when the bus comes by. I don't know what's going to happen if there is actual construction. And I think that is something that we definitely need to discuss. What kind of, if there are problems relating to my house from caused by this, what's going to happen? Who's going to pay to fix it? Do I have to do that? These houses are not built to code. Let's be real here. They're 100 years old. They're not built to today's code. And for you to expect that it'll be as great after you dig up a lot of dirt, put something in, and try to put dirt back on, it would be silly to say so. And I think my last bit is a side note. I think it was one of the first 3 slides of today's presentation. It was a spaghetti map of proposed routes. And in that spaghetti route, I saw the red lines, the red roads. And those actually, the proposed ones, just brainstorming session ones, definitely went through Harvard. However, the ones that ended up being presented as preferred alternatives are always on the east, away from the Harvard area. And it kind of, again, makes you wonder, why are you avoiding Harvard? Is that expensive? Are you, again, putting the burden on people that live on the street? And I think I'm going to leave this as one last comment. For those that are commenting today, tomorrow potentially, I'm over at 61 Hampshire. If you're upset and if you want to hopefully propose change, I'm here for you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kaufman, I see you've been able to join us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for letting me speak. I was having some technological difficulties before. I live at 66C Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was just going to say, can you just give your name, your address, and spell your last name for the record?
Sure. Kimberly Kaufman, Kaufman, 66C Hampshire Street, Cambridge 02139. I've lived there for 27 years, and this neighborhood has changed a lot, but it's still one of the most impoverished neighborhoods in Boston, Area 4, the Port. And I am disappointed that they're trying to put this work right through the center of our neighborhood when it can go somewhere else that is less disruptive to people, to the citizens of Cambridge. And I feel that it's always the way that they're just going to try and push it through. Like the last speaker said, people that have several jobs or can't come to speak or are not informed about what's going on because they don't have time to read the handouts that come to the door, or they don't understand them. And we don't have lawyers backing us like Harvard and MIT do. So I feel that things are pushed through in our neighborhood. When they were building a lot in Cambridge in Kendall Square, and they were putting the pilings in, my whole house shook, and my house actually like tilted, and it's still tilted. And I spoke to somebody and they said, oh, well, you should have taken a reading before they started putting in those pilings. But, I mean, I just believe I would like to see them do it somewhere that is less disruptive to the citizens of Cambridge and the people who live there. And that's my comment. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Is Caleb Nealon in the attendees group?
Yes, I am. Am I being heard? Am I audible? Great.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Caleb Nealon, last name Neelon, and I live at 320 Columbia Street, which is about midway between the Hampshire portion of the project and the this part that picks up on Cambridge Street. I wanted to echo what Mr. Levy said about the section from Cambridge Street into Union Square. I wanted to echo what Mr. Zevin and Mr. Hua said as well about the section on Hampshire Street. I could easily speak to those, but they spoke wonderfully for it. I want to also echo what Ms. Kaufman just said. All those concerns are mine as well. And I particularly want to thank and echo everything that Ms. Nguyen had said and for organizing that here. I'm going to talk about Columbia Street and this particular section. When you move down Columbia Street and you go down, you're going to notice that it is almost entirely multifamily houses. I think the single family houses you're counting less than, certainly less than counted on one hand in that section. Most of the houses are residential buildings, multifamilies, and I would say a good number of them are rentals, but also a good number of them are condoized. Now, we've said that this is this is historically a red line neighborhood and so forth. But I think for a place like Cambridge, now Cambridge is one of the many communities around here whose median household income is 1/10 of the median home price. And I mean, that's staggering to begin with. So I think for the people who are living here, who may be tenants, they may have a special arrangement. They may have some particular thing that they are holding on to. People who have bought into a condo association and tried, this is what you can get, and you're holding on. And this is the kind of thing where, why are you holding on in this neighborhood? It's because you can do, you may not be able to go anywhere else, but you may also be doing it for your children so that you can send your kid to, for example, the beautiful King Open School that has just opened a block or two away, where we sent our daughter. There are a lot of children in this neighborhood. I mean, it's quite a lot. Halloween is a zoo. What I do want to point out is that the street is narrow. It is not a place that allows parking on both sides in any particular place. It's a place that it's a bus route, for one. The CT2 bus goes up it. It is a place where you get a ton of traffic, of truck traffic as well, because of all the projects. It points in the northerly direction. It goes straight to Boynton Yards and the whole Union Square area. But it's also narrow sidewalks. It's the sort of place where you hold your kid on the house side of the sidewalk when you're walking. It's the sort of place where when you hear the bus coming behind you, you edge a good, 18 inches away from the curb. It's the sort of place, the sort of sidewalk where if you see a child or somebody coming to it, you look behind you and you take the curbside pass as you pass them. It's narrow. So that means that everything is right there. Everything is right there. It's very, very close. And what really struck me about why you would choose this and how out of whack it is you understand this is almost entirely residential, and residential that is very near the street. And I'm really curious as to why that ever came up, except really for the insidious places that my mind will go when presented with something where you're dealing with a lower income neighborhood compared to basically everywhere else in Cambridge. And you're dealing with a lot of people who live in apartments, and as Ms. Nguyen said, have no idea that this is happening. So I'm going to leave it there, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nealon. Is Evelyn Hurley in the attendees room?
I don't believe so. But we have Eric Goldberg, who is the next speaker.
Mr. Goldberg, the drill. Just please
Yes,
give
hello.
your name and address and spell your last name.
My name is Eric Goldberg, Goldberg. I live at 183 Clark Street. in Area 4 in Cambridge. I'll be brief. I support Eversource updating the electrical grid. This is important work, but I do have very serious concerns about the proposed route S1 and S1A, the yellow route on the map, running through Area 4, my neighborhood. It would be very close to where we live. Running up Hampshire and Columbia streets. If you look at the map, basically I concur with what a lot of my neighbors have said. Mr. Levin, Mr. Zabin, Mr. Hua, Ms. Kaufman. This is the one real residential neighborhood in Cambridge where there's going to be major disruptions. There'll be, it will disrupt families. As someone just mentioned, there are a lot of children, there are schools and children walking up and down the sidewalks, which are very narrow. There's a lot of bus traffic, and there's a huge amount of bicycle traffic on Hampshire. It's one of the major cycling routes through Cambridge. I myself cycle regularly, both to my rowing club on the Charles River, and also I'm a professor at MIT and I cycle to MIT. And I can just say that the construction that has been going on around Kendall Square has made a very dangerous environment for cyclists. So I have very serious concerns about the proposed routes. I've read through the proposal, and I would urge Eversource really to reconsider alternative routes, especially the S11C route, which would run through mostly non-residential and commercial areas along the train tracks, and be far less disruptive to this one area, a residential area of Cambridge that would be heavily impacted. So that's what I have to say, and I appreciate you listening to my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. The next person to have signed up is Heather Cheney. Is she in the attendees list? I see she is. Ms. Cheney, could you just give your name and your address and spell your last name for the record?
It's Heather Cheney, and my last name is spelled Cheney, and I'm at 71 Hampshire Street. And I want to thank you all for listening to all of these comments. And I want to echo what so many of my neighbors have said about the proposed route for this project going down Hampshire Street, and echo that I feel it would be better for this line to be put in a more sort of industrial or commercial area, like the train tracks, for example. We just went through a huge digging project in the road a few months ago. And my house is more than 100 years old. My house was built when Ulysses S. Grant was president back in the 1870s. And when this last project was going on in the street with, I think it was the gas company, you know, the whole house was shaking. And, you know, it's scary. I don't know if my house is really built to withstand, you know, this kind of thing. And this is a historic house, and, you know, it's a part of history. It's a part of our community. And I would just hate to see something happen to it. The other thing is that we don't just, you know, live here. A lot of us have to work here now, like all day long at home because of the pandemic. A lot of our employers have kind of reduced their office space that we used to go to and are now having us all work from home. So while this latest project was going on in the street with the gas company, and I was trying to have work phone calls from my desk right by this window, right by the street, it was sometimes hard to hear and hard to conduct my business. So that's a real problem. I'll also say that we have some trees on this street that are hundreds of years old, huge, beautiful old trees. And I just don't know what kind of disruption this project is going to have on those trees and how long, if any of these trees roots are damaged by this that go way under the road. It's going to take hundreds of years to replace that. And these are trees that provide us with oxygen and shade and mitigate climate change. And they're just very important and it will take 100 years to replace if anything happens to them. And I'll also echo what other people have said about the bikes. This is a huge, huge bike pathway on Hampshire Street. Many, many people commuting to school and to work on their bicycles and will be really disrupted by the road being, impassable for a long period of time with this project. Also parking. A lot of people park on the street here. Some of us have driveways, but a lot of houses don't. And a lot of people rely on these parking spots in the street to park their cars. And where are they going to park if the street is being, torn up and inaccessible for parking? A lot of people don't have any other option of any place to put their car. It's expensive to use to try to put your car in a parking lot somewhere that you have to pay for. So I just really appreciate Mr. Green and Ms. Sharkey and Mr. Hughes and Ms. Evans and Mr. Young. I've seen several of you nodding along. I feel like you sort of understand where we're coming from, and I just really appreciate your attention and just, really urge you, please, to not have this project go through our residential neighborhood and site it instead along a more commercial industrial pathway. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jenny. Is Lee Farris in the attendees group?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Can you just give your name and address and spell your last name, please?
Yes, my name is Lee Farris, F as in Frank, ARRIS like Sam, address 269 Norfolk Street in Cambridge at the corner of Hampshire Street. Like most of the other people that you've heard from tonight, I'm also concerned about the yellow route that goes up to Somerville. And I think Representative Connolly put it very well, as have many of the other folks. I would like to see something written from the commission about the data used to choose this route. There were the 4 or 5 goals that you guys are trying to maximize, and I'd like to hear about each of those goals and the weight given to each of them in terms of the proposed route. And I'd like to have the same information with regard to the alternative route along the railroad tracks. And I also wanted to ask if you folks could write something that clarifies what the outreach was to folks along this route. Specifically, did you look for only property owners? Did you look for registered voters? How did you get information to people? Because I appreciate Ms. Nguyen flyering folks, but as she said, she can't get inside of multifamily housing. And I want to know if you reached those folks and if you used multiple languages in your outreach materials. And so I'm concerned about particularly the disruption during construction. I heard the presenter say it would only be a few weeks, and I basically don't really have faith in that based on having just gone through the Eversource gas project on my block of Norfolk Street. And just, that was months ago. And just yesterday, and just last week, we had the sidewalks where those that were dug up repaired. So, that's something that was supposed to be a few weeks, and we had impacts much later than that. And I am also concerned for folks that live closer on the interference question. I did see on the FCC website that it says that these high power lines can cause interference within proximity. So I would like it if the commission produced something written about that. Yeah, so that, I don't know if this meeting tonight is set up for there to be any replies to the concerns that you've heard. I'm kind of assuming that that doesn't happen, and that's why I'm asking for written materials to be prepared and communicated to people that have spoken tonight, because I would like to see that kind of information before I send my written comments in, so that I can make my written comments as effective and powerful as possible. Lastly, I do attend a lot of governmental Zoom meetings, and it is helpful if you can tell people one or two names ahead of time that their name is going to come up, because these, this is a long meeting. I had it on my calendar to be an hour long. So it's already way longer than what I was expecting. And so A, make the links clear, and B, if you could find some way of telling people, like I knew I was number 13 in line, but I didn't know what number person you had gotten to, given that some people had dropped out and so forth. So some prep for people ahead of time would be helpful in case they're trying to multitask, like put a kid to bed or something. Thanks very much. I appreciate you guys listening. And I should also say that I was one of the people that pushed really hard for the new Eversource station to not be located across the street from a school, like was the original plan. So I am really glad and appreciative that it got recited to Kendall Square, and I like that it's being buried. So there's a lot of good things that have happened, but it's this one route, the yellow route to Somerville, that I'm really concerned about. And I really hope you'll consider changing to the alternative along the train line. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Ferris. Would the company like to address, she's raised a number of issues from kind of the outreach, which the company was required to do as part of the publication requirements that the siting board requires for projects of this type, and perhaps briefly address some of her other questions. Mr. Rosenzweig?
We can. Mr. Lanham, can you address some of that? And I guess others on the team, maybe Ms. Benjamins, may touch upon some of the other questions that were raised by Ms. Ferris.
I can certainly start off. I apologize. My camera decided not to work right now. I hope my audio, you can hear me. So to specifically answer some of the questions, Ms. Ferris, about the outreach that was done, we have had multiple conversations with a variety of stakeholders, engagement over the past several years. I think a lot of the door drops or the information that you got was a result of our door-to-door outreach that we conducted. But I guess what I would like to just commit to here and now is I hear a lot of questions and concerns coming from the residents along Hampshire Street, and the outreach team is more than willing and would be more than happy to come and have conversations and further discussions in depth with those specific residents that need more information that either they haven't gotten or haven't heard from during the other public comment sessions, open houses, and other things that we have performed. So my apologies if you didn't get the information. We really worked incredibly hard to make sure that all of the residents and abutters along all of these routes were informed. But I am more than happy, and we'll actually take an action item to come back and address a lot of the individual questions that the residents along Hampshire Street have brought up tonight.
Todd, can you please speak to the number of languages that our outreach has been translated to and what we've done over the past 2 years to reach the residents?
Yes, we can. I don't have the numbers right off the top of my head, but we have translated the documents into the English plus the additional 4 languages that you described. If I remember correctly, Maya, some of the outreach meetings that we had numbered into the well over 100 outreach meetings, and these meetings go all the way back to 2019 when we appeared before City Council during the Transportation and Public Utilities Committee's hearing. So we've been working on this project and engaging in the dialogue with the residents and the communities since 2019 on this.
Thank you, Todd. In our public outreach, we have specifically translated to Spanish, Portuguese, Haitian Creole, and Mandarin on several occasions and had public meetings just to address that specific concern. And as it pertains to reaching out to various entities, notices are sent to every single specific mailing address, not necessarily to and the owner. So anybody living in the residence should have received multiple notices, as well as the owners of the properties. I did want to address the question for documentation because we have put together a thorough review that explains the entire process as to how we came from what we refer to as our spaghetti map down to the top 2 routes that we're discussing tonight. We did do a thorough review that looked at historical resources. We looked at the residential areas and commercial, and that's all documented in our petition, which is available, I believe, on the Energy Facility Siting Board website. So I would encourage everyone to look at that because that explains in great detail how we've analyzed the routes, the costs associated with the routes, the outreach that we've done to every entity, as well as the various components that we had to consider that led us to make the decision that we did. So thank you.
I would like to add too, I know Ms. Ferris had questions about our standards, the process that we go through. That is also described in detail on the Siting Board website. As I think I said in the opening of this public comment hearing, this is just the start of the process for us. We go through fairly prolonged evidentiary hearings after we've issued discovery on topics such as the environmental impacts of a proposed project, the need for a project in terms of meeting reliability requirements, the other options that are potentially available to meet those needs other than the project as proposed by the company. The end result of the process is that the staff produces a fairly detailed written decision which is distributed to the parties and made available publicly before the Siting Board itself meets to vote on the tentative decision produced by the staff and address comments from all the parties and takes comments from the public on that tentative decision before it makes its final decision. So if people want more information on that, I can certainly give it to you, but right now we'd like to continue to try and take comments from the public, and we appreciate that people have been so patient as we've progressed through the evening tonight. So we are going to resume with the next person, who is Sir John Divac, I believe, if he's still in the waiting room.
He is, and he'll be with us momentarily.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Can you go through the
Yeah.
same routine? Thank you.
Sure. My name is Srdjan Divac. My last name is spelled D as in David, I, V as in Victor, AC. I live on 314 Columbia Street in Cambridge, along the preferred proposed route S1A. And owing to my position in line today, there is basically no anecdotal or emotional impact statement that I can make that hasn't been said already. So I think I will yield my time to others, and I would just like to register my concern and wish that perhaps S1A might be supplanted by S11C. And I appreciate you're allowing me to speak out. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, I believe Joyce Wu is the next name on the list.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
I know now. Thank you for the time for comments. My name is Joyce Wu. My last name is WU. I live at 80 Webster Avenue in Somerville, Unit 4G. So you heard from Roger Levy first, and I'm also at the same building. We have had a lot of impact construction that happens in yards. I'm very familiar with that.
Ms. Wu, sorry to interrupt, but could you slow down a little bit? Plus, we
Sorry.
seem to be getting some echo in your audio. So maybe we can start up again.
Okay, sorry.
I've been having issues with my speaker. I'm changing it now. Is that, I'm sorry, with my microphone. Can you hear me?
That's much better. Thank you. I appreciate taking the time to fix it.
So I start again. My name is Joyce Wu, spelled W-U. I live at 80 Webster Avenue, Unit 4G in Somerville. And we are also on that same line, the S1 route. Columbia Pass is just behind our building. And there's also construction right behind us, right on Columbia Street. So we are well aware of construction noise. It happens every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturdays for us. And I mean, so many people already have talked about the impacts to their life with this route. So I don't need to repeat that. And I also want to say that I did attend the earlier meeting in October. I did ask which route was the most impact to residents, and it said that this route was, that there was less residential impact for the S11C. And I said, well, then they should pick that one. And they still picked the other one. So I don't know how that procedure happened. And also that, as abutters, we weren't consulted at all about the decision. Just wanted to say that as well. I know that there has to be a lot of meetings and things like that to go on to decide these things, a lot of data. But really, it would be nice to be involved earlier for the decision to be made. The other thing I want to say is that Eversource were doing work on Columbia Street a few weeks ago. And we only know this because it happened starting from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. And we were not notified at all. I had to go down at midnight to the police officer on duty to ask what the work was. I don't appreciate that at all. I feel like there was really no respect given to the residents in this area for that work. And it just seems to me that this is what's going to be happening if it goes through here. And I had to find out from that officer that the work was actually going to be happening for 2 months.
Sorry, repeat. I had to find out from the officer.
I had to find out from the officer that it was going to be happening for 2 nights, not just that night. So I don't know what, I mean, I actually asked him when the permit was approved and he said it was Thursday and this was Sunday night. So there was time to notify us and I don't know why that didn't happen. And it's just an example, a concrete example of what kind of work this might entail. So it's just an added information. I agree with all the other residents who will be impacted by this route. And I also want to know what it would take to change the route to the alternate route. I mean, we all want, like the ones that have been speaking have been wanting to change, but what would make that decision change? And that's what I'd like to know. Thank you.
Donna, we're not hearing you. But I don't see your mute button on, so check your mic.
I apologize. Ms. Wu, just so you know, the consideration of both the proposed and the proposed preferred route and the proposed alternative routes are actually make up a significant part of the decisions that we make as part of the review of the company's proposal. And we go through their development of the entire universe of potential routes that they use to finally select and assign weights to the route that they end up proposing. So that will be part of our ultimate decision in this proceeding.
Okay, I think as a resident and for the other residents, we'd like to know what we can do to sway that decision, as it does impact so many people. Thank you.
Gail Charpentier is the next on the list.
They'll be joining momentarily.
Hello, my name is Gail Charpentier, and it's C-H-A-R-P as in Peter, E-N-T-I-E-R. And I live at 19 Murdoch, M-U-R-D-O-C-K Street. I live around the corner. Pretty much wherever I go, I have to walk on Hampshire Street and have a lot of dear neighbors on Hampshire Street. I live like a half of a half block, a quarter of a block from Hampshire Street, let's put it that way. And yes, most people have echoed my concerns. I am pleased that the system that is Eversource Corporation and the system that is the State Siting Board have been speaking and conferring and working hard together. And now and reaching out to us neighbors. And now that it's our chance to speak as well. I perhaps missed that there were earlier times. That's on me. Earlier times I could have spoken. So now we have the three systems together and maybe there's a fourth. I don't know. I don't agree with this choice of route. The man who spoke about Columbia Street and how he has to move his children when the bus comes, and Exactly. That's our neighborhood, folks. That's our neighborhood. You live so close to the street that everything that happens as the vehicles roll by has a major effect on you. And that's what we choose to do. We choose to live here. It's a beautiful city. I would like to see S1A and S1 completely revised and taken away from this residential neighborhood. It's way too crowded. The woman who spoke of the number of front doors has an interesting count. And I would like to see this route S11C be the choice. If it's between that and this, that is where there's 50 feet of space between the construction and the doorways, and that it's mostly in back, and it's of buildings and primarily commercial space where people go home at the end of the day. The fact I'm hearing about nighttime construction, I'm protected here on my little alley, Murdoch Street, but it doesn't matter what I have or don't have. It's the overall. This is the system. This neighborhood is a wonderful neighborhood. And yeah, I walked my daughter down to the school many years. So it's highly trafficked by young children and babies and nannies and so forth. This is really something I totally disagree with. And my answer is no. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. The next person in line is Pamela Van Dort. Is she in the attendees room? Yes, she is. Welcome. Please just give your name and your address for the purposes of the record and spell your last name.
Sure. My name is Pamela Van Dort. That's V as in Victor, A, N as in Nancy, D as in dog, O, R, T as in Thomas. And I live at 13 Cornelius Way. I want to speak in support of the proposed location for the new substation. I live in the Linden Park neighborhood, like my neighbor Jim Gray, who spoke earlier this evening. Located just behind the Kendall Square Cinema, my Linden Park neighbors and I are some of the closest residents to the proposed substation and some of the adjoining transmission lines. We immediately abut the Grand Junction line and are immediately opposite the railroad tracks from the original siting for the substation on Fulkerson Street. And just for the board's reference, our neighborhood is right next to the railroad, much less than 50 feet. But as to the new location of the substation on Binney Street, this underground substation is the result of years of discussions between Eversource, the city of Cambridge, local businesses and developers, many of the neighbors that have already spoken today. And I just want to reiterate that, you know, the earlier versions of this project that considered building a large above ground substation at 135 Fulkerson Street, which is not only near Linden Park, but also across the street from the Kennedy Longfellow Elementary School in East Cambridge neighborhoods, was totally unworkable. And we can't go back to that plan, which is what I would understand would happen if you do not approve the current proposal. The new proposed substation location along Binney Street is far better. It will be located in the Kendall Square Business District, which was the major contributor for the substation's need in the first place. Because this new proposed site will also be placed underground, current and future residents will benefit from open space in a part of the city that is among the densest in America. The new location is also part of a larger rezoning effort that involves building new lab space, housing, which is much needed, and more land that can be used for a public purpose. In short, this project and the accompanying pieces will make the entire neighborhood better. I strongly encourage the siting board to approve the location of the new substation and appreciate your time and consideration of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person signed up is Ilya Sucholutsky. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that well.
Ms. Sharkey, if I'm not mistaken, the next three pre-registered speakers are not in the attendee group, unless I've missed them somehow. So perhaps if the next three could raise their hands so we can identify them and get their comments. I'll read the names. I don't believe Miss Suchalowski is here. Eliana Fagan would be the next pre-registered speaker. And finally, Natasha Stark, although I think she may have been expecting to speak tomorrow if we were having another public comment hearing.
I believe that's right. I believe she couldn't attend tonight, but she wanted to sign up in case we had a hearing tomorrow as well.
So we have two hands raised right now. I presume these folks would like to speak. So why don't we start with the first one, which is Jason Stockman, who's had his hand raised for quite some time. So I'll move him to the panel.
Hi, I'm Jason Stockman, Stockmann, 7 Cornelius Way in the Linden Park neighborhood. So my neighbors, Jim Gray and Pamela Van Dort, have already spoken. I'll very briefly echo their gratitude for the decision to site the substation underneath the redeveloped garage in Kendall Square, and especially to put a park with public space that will benefit the whole community. This is really a win-win, I think. I wanted to comment very briefly on the routing of the cables because I experienced a major utility upgrade on Gore Street where I used to live. And I would say I realize that it's a difficult decision between the proposed routes, but if the cable does get routed on Hampshire Street, that Eversource and the city try the best they can to give something to the residents in return. And I'm very sensitive to the concerns that were raised by previous speakers, but sometimes the community can benefit by getting better sidewalks, improved street trees, and upgraded water mains. So on Gore Street, the deal was that we would live with the construction impact of a major utility overhaul to serve North Point, which is adjacent to that neighborhood. And in return, we would get better street trees, they would redo the sidewalks, and our water main from the 19th century would be replaced. And so as a resident, I actually felt like that was a pretty decent deal because we were getting something very tangible out of the project. And it was benefiting the growth of the overall part of Cambridge. And so I thought that was all productive and addressed a lot of the community concerns. One issue that arose during that project was the loss of a mature oak tree due to the way that the roots had wrapped around a gas line. And so when the gas line was replaced, unfortunately, we lost a treasured oak that had to be at least 60 years old along Gore Street, which is a part of the city with very low tree canopy. So losing a mature tree was especially painful for us. And so, I mean, the city did reprimand, the contractor, and I think they fined the contractor, but none of this replaces the loss of that tree. So a previous speaker had noted the mature trees along Hampshire and the importance of protecting them if the electrical lines do get run along Hampshire. And I would just reiterate that concern that the residents really care about their street trees. It's very hard to keep them alive in this challenging environment. And while I realize sometimes it's inevitable that you lose a tree to accommodate utility work, that there should be a contingency plan. Okay, what do we do in the event that a mature tree is lost for this project? How do we make that up to the community? So such a plan wasn't really in place on Gore Street. And I think that the residents were frustrated by that. So yeah, just wanted to encourage a lot of planning and contingency planning around the tree canopy, because we really care about it a lot in this part of town, and it's very scarce and very hard to keep healthy. So thanks very much for your work and for the opportunity to speak.
Before you go, the street you keep saying, Gore Street,
Gore.
Gore, G-O-R.
Gore. I didn't hear the G. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Did we lose Mr. Stockman? It looks like he's frozen.
Well, we got his street name. That's important.
Yeah, before we get off, thanks.
Ah, there he is, unfrozen.
Thank you, Mr. Stockman. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you very much.
Are there other people who are waiting who've raised their hands?
We have two attendees who've raised their hands. One is just DT 320. So we'll find out who that is.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Can you please give your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the purposes of the record, please?
My name is Daniel Tom, T-O-M.
Can't understand him.
I'm sorry, your audio is a little unclear.
That's fully understandable. I might just drop out of this call. I'm in my car. The audio is not going to be great. Does this help? If it doesn't help, then I can drop off.
Try again one more time, and we'll see if the crackling has reduced.
So yeah, my name is Daniel Tom. Last name Tom, T-O-M. I live at 320 Columbia Street. I want to speak to the sentiment of feeling a bit redlined by this proposal. The fact that this has traditionally been a very working class neighbor with a mix of a lot of transient rentals along Columbia. It just feels like we weren't fully informed of impact construction would have. Receiving the EverSource notices, the Somerville route, it was very hard to distinguish that was a route that was going to go straight down Columbia and Hampshire.
All right. I mean, you can put them on, but I can't produce a transcript of it. So just to let you know.
Yeah, Mr. Tom, I'm afraid we're having the stenographer can't take down your comments just because the crackling in the background makes what you're saying very unclear.
I understand. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Green, is there anyone else waiting?
Yes, Megan Colgan and Scooby Leposki. Well, I'm not sure if that was successful or not. Seems like we may have lost Megan and Scooby.
They made it to the panelists, and I asked them to unmute, and they did, and they have not said anything since.
Yeah, and I don't see any.
Oh, here we go.
There they are. I'm
Sorry,
afraid you're muted.
Or your mic's not working.
Is it working now?
Yes, thank you.
Well, yeah, well, very, very quiet. So you're going to have to really speak louder or adjust the mic sensitivity. Can barely hear you.
Now?
No, it's still not working too well. Yeah, now we can't hear you at all.
Okay.
If we move her out and readmit her, would that make any difference, Mr. Green?
I have no idea. We can certainly try, or she could try dialing in on a phone. That's another option to at least have audio. Perhaps we can move our next speaker into the panel while Ms. Colgan adjusts her microphone settings.
So we'll come back to you, Ms. Colgan.
Okay, I believe next up is Sarah Zeiser.
Ah, there you are. Ms. Zeiser, can you just give your name, spell your last name, and give your address for the record, please?
Sure, and I'll just check first that you can hear me.
We can, thank you.
Great. Thank you. I'm Sarah Zeiser, last name Zeiser spelled Z as in zebra, E-I-S as in Sam, E-R. I'm a resident of 80 Webster Avenue, I'm in Unit 2J. This is the condo building. You've already heard from a couple neighbors of mine. We are in Somerville, right on the Cambridge-Somerville line, and on the block that abuts Columbia Ave, where the proposed preferred route in Somerville would run. Since it seems like I'm at the end of the night, I don't have much new to add, but will echo most of the comments of this evening with an additional note specific to our neighborhood here at what is being called the gateway to Boynton Yards. We at Webster Ave and our neighbors in this Union Square neighborhood are undergoing a lot of change. There's a tremendous amount of development happening right now, as I'm sure you're all aware, both here in Boynton Yards and in Union Square proper, abutting the new Green Line station. We've been living next to quite a lot of construction for a good 6 months, actually longer. It started last fall, and we have a couple years more ahead of us. Very proximate construction that's been quite disruptive to all of our lives here. We were in a pretty protracted negotiation with the developers of our neighboring site, CV Properties, who were very open to conversation, which we appreciated. We came to a happy agreement with them, but nevertheless, there is quite a lot of construction happening and will continue over, I'm imagining, probably the next decade in this immediate neighborhood, first with this development right next to us, and then across the street. I was in the news recently that the Nussbaum property just sold. That will be something. This whole neighborhood is just going to be a construction zone for many, many years to come. We are hoping to minimize the effect of that on our residential unit, which, as my neighbors Roger and Joy said, houses about 100 residents. And we were pretty disturbed, as Joyce noted a few weeks ago, when there was work done with no notice overnight. As I said, we worked quite closely with CV Properties to develop guidelines around the construction that's happening related to their site, came to an agreement about the timeline. But because of this overnight work that was done, as I understand it, related to this project, exploring manhole covers or something to that effect, we had nearly 72 hours of constant construction from the actual development next door, which starts at 7 a.m. and goes until 4 p.m. And then whatever the Eversource contractors were doing starting about 7 p.m. until one evening, I believe it was close to 5 a.m. So that was pretty upsetting. The only notice that we got about that particular work came from CV Properties as a sort of postscript to an email to our unit residents and owners. They send weekly updates about what's coming ahead, and they told us, by the way, you're going to be hearing this noise, that's not us. But we only knew of it first for one night, and then, as Joyce said, she went out to speak with the police officer who was present for that, and then discovered that actually it was going to be for several nights. And work needs to be done on this project. We understand that, but as people who are already in this neighborhood facing quite a lot of disruption to our lives because of established development, the idea of additional years-long projects that are going to be disruptive to us, and especially, I know for commuters, disrupting some very busy roadways, which, because of the development, are even going to be even more crowded in the years to come, with commuters driving in and people on bikes using the new T station. We are concerned, especially because of what we're hoping is not going to be setting a precedent of doing overnight work with virtually no notice. So that is certainly a concern of ours that I'll raise specifically, just that we are feeling a little, folks in this neighborhood are feeling a little beleaguered when it comes to construction. This is a residential neighborhood. If you're looking west, if you look east, it's a construction zone. We don't want to add to what we are already facing in the years ahead. So that's what I'll say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Ms. Colgan is hopefully back with her microphone and audible comment.
Oh, now we're going to adjourn. Hi, it's Megan Colgan.
Thank you. We can hear you. There's a little bit of an echo, but.
Okay, I'm outside at my neighbor's house. Quiet, please. With children running around. So my last name is Colgan, Colgan, and I live at 59 Hampshire Street. And so I'm not going to say anything new that hasn't already been said by many of my neighbors tonight. But what I wanted to say is that, just reiterate that we are a densely populated neighborhood here. We're one of the most densely populated in Cambridge. I do support updating the grid, but I do have serious concerns about the proposed route up Columbia and Hampshire. I strongly would like everybody to reconsider the S11C route because we have strong concerns about the yellow line S11A route. I think everyone has said, but I just want to reiterate, I think you can hear around me that there's just families and children that make up this neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood. You know, historically, this part of East Cambridge has had, you know, a history of redlining. I think it's our moment now to move toward the future. I guess my concerns are really, you know, there's a disruption to the environment, the day-to-day environment that we all live in, that I'm concerned about. I worry about the tree canopy. My husband works at home. He actually works, he does biodata sonification where he actually uses the trees to create beautiful music. I mean, he's, you know, part of his work is to promote and protect the tree canopy. So I'm certainly worried about that. I'm also worried about the unknown after effects when all the dust settles. Like, what does it mean for us to live here on this street, on Hampshire Street? What will happen afterwards? I don't actually know the answer to that, but I know there are certain studies that shows there could be adverse effects. So I worry about that. And I guess at the end of the day, if there's an alternate route that is less disruptive to families that live here, I would just like us to reconsider that route. Because if we can affect less residences, less families, and put this somewhere where there's more commercial properties, then I would have to say that just seems like the logical way to go. So I think, you know, I'll just close by saying, just consider the impact to us, to our lives, to our families, to the people that live here. And if there is a better route, which I believe there is, then we would like to choose that. And that's it. I hope you could hear me.
Thank you, Ms. Colgan.
Okay.
Ms. Sharkey, I don't, oh, we have, I believe, Ms. Nguyen is raising her hand again. I'm wondering if there are any other speakers that we have not yet heard from who would like to comment, and if so, whether they can raise their hand, or if you're dialing in, hit *9 and we'll see you asking to comment. So again, at this point, I'm seeing Ms. Nguyen as the remaining commenter.
Since you've already provided comments.
She's on her way to the panel.
Since you've already provided comments, we just like to ask that you
keep it short.
Relative. Yes. Thank you, though.
Okay. Yes, I will definitely do that. It's just that when I spoke the first time, it seems like I completely forgot to represent the owners and the landlords that are around here as well. So I just wanted to quickly say that if we're doing construction and continued development on these roads for that time being and for the time afterwards, landlords are going to suffer, and both small businesses like the mom and pop shops like Kansapur Cafe or so, and the coin op laundry. So I just wanted to keep that in mind as well. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So is there anyone else?
The gentleman who was dialing in from his car is raising his hand. We can try it and see if the audio is better this time.
Okay.
Hi, I'm parked now, so hopefully the everything sounds better now.
It's definitely improved. Can you just, sorry, give your name and your address again for the record? I'm sorry, but we will be able to record it better this time.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Tom, last name Tom. I live at 320 Columbia Street. I'll reiterate that a lot of my neighbors already spoke quite eloquently on the main concerns of this beautiful residential neighborhood. I want to speak a little bit about the notification that I got from EverSource. When to speak frankly, when I first saw it, the proposed route going down from Somerville to the substation was a very light shade of green, and when I saw it, I was like, great, not in my backyard. Just because it wasn't really clear that route was coming down to the heart of our neighborhood. I want to thank Miss Nguyen for her work to inform the community. I think that really brought a lot of attention to some of the neighborhoods, the neighbors here, and the ongoing concern that I have with this, in addition to the traffic concerns for the bike and traffic and parking and all that, I want to better understand what the long-term potential health consequences are to living close to a transmission line that has a strong magnetic field around it. The fact that I just saw this notice yesterday and raised it to my high level of concern, I can say that I can't have that I don't have a very informed decision on what the long-term consequence of living near a strong electromagnetic field is. But that's my homework to learn more about that. And I at this point I am concerned because this is the neighborhood full of beautiful neighbors and beautiful children, and I think that efforts should be made to move this away from our residential neighborhood. And with that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Tom.
Thank you.
Are there any other attendees who would like to comment this evening? And if so, please use the raise hand feature. I see no additional commenters, presiding officer.
In that case, we will conclude the hearing for tonight, and it appears we will not need the additional hearing days that we had potentially reserved. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's Siting Board public comment hearing. The notice that you received for this public comment hearing includes other important dates related to this case. If you decide your spoken comments tonight weren't fully expressed, you should file written comments by July 22nd. Your written comments help inform the Siting Board about public concerns regarding the company's request and important issues for our review in the proceeding. Please email those comments to me at donna.sharkey@mass.gov and to the company's legal representative at DROSEN@KEEGANWERLIN.com. If you decide you wish to participate as either an intervener or a limited participant, you need to file those requests by July 22nd. Our Siting Board website describes the requirements necessary to petition for status as an intervener or for status as a limited participant. There is a specific page on our website which provides information on filing these requests. This information is set out in the written notice as well. If you have any questions on these requirements, please email me at donna.sharkey@mass.gov. Again, please email those petitions to me at my email address and the company's legal representative email address that are given in the notice, and they're also listed on the break slides that have been posted throughout the public comment hearing. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this public comment hearing and for your patience tonight. We appreciate hearing your comments and hope you have a good night. Thank you. We are off the record.
Night, Donna.
Good night. Thank you very much, David.
Yeah, nice job.
You did well under the circumstances.
I want to get in the car and take it. I'll take it in the car. How about that? We'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, hi. Yes, I believe we exhausted the number of commenters tonight. So we will not have, even though we reserved the time for Wednesday and Thursday. So you are free, at least from our obligations. but you can use those revenues for whatever purposes you want. Yes, exactly. Good night.